Good morning, everyone, and welcome to When Good Advice Pays, a look into how the worlds of influencer marketing, performance marketing, and technology are unlocking new doors to reach new audiences and drive growth in the affiliate marketing channel. My name is Brian Marcus, and I will be your host for today's webinar. As you can see, I'm homebound here in the quarantine with my best short sleeve shirt on. And when I'm not doing webinars, I am the Vice President of Global Marketing at Tune. Tune builds the technology that powers successful marketing partnerships across mobile and web. The Tune Partner Marketing Platform is the industry's most flexible SaaS platform for building, managing, and growing partner programs for advertisers and networks. And after spending close to 2 decades in the performance spaces at places like Google and eBay, I have the distinct pleasure of virtually sharing this information with you and these insights around influencer and technology with this guy sitting next to me, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me. So I've been in affiliate marketing for over 15 years. I was at Commission Junction, or now CJ Affiliate, for the first 13 years of my career, responsible for finding and growing affiliates. So I got to know Brand Cycle when they launched in 2016 and decided to join forces in 2018 after watching them grow and really seeing the passion that brands had in working with Brand Cycle. In a nutshell, Brand Cycle, we're a sub-affiliate or a premium sub-affiliate network that represents over 2,500 bloggers, content creators, as well as social media influencers who use short-form content to convert today's shoppers.
Great. Well, while the concept, and welcome, Scott. It's great to work with you again. I feel like we've been through many years together, and this is a particularly interesting topic. But while the concept of an influencer has been around for years and years, the relationship, the tools, the data, the channels of promotion have evolved quite dramatically. So why don't you, Scott, kick us off by educating us on the types of influencers that Brand Cycle works with most closely, the community influencers. Why don't you tell us a little bit about them, who they are, and what they do?
Sure, absolutely. So what they're really focusing on is using their community or using their trusted consumers that reach them or go to their sites to really, they value their recommendations. So they create these communities to post offers or post recommendations or things that they, truly authenticate or want to, offer to their audiences. And within the Brand Cycle community, our typical influencer in the community side has about 10,000 to 250,000 shoppers, primarily female. It's the age 25 to 55 years old who's buying things for the household. So maybe for their children, maybe for their spouses, for themselves. But it's that, that female buyer for their families. That's our target audience.
So it seems like community influencers have been around for a long time. What's changed about them in the year 2020?
Absolutely. So back in the day when influencing really became the hot button in the industry, we had thousands, actually up to millions at times, of influencers that had come onto the scene. The challenge is that it required a consumer to come to their blog, to come to their site directly and quickly. Consumers didn't want to do that, and it was hard to track all of their favorite influencers and how to go. So what we've really seen is with the rise of social media platforms, it's made it easier, right? Why bother forcing a consumer to come to you when you can reach them where they're already going? So as you can see here, like Facebook has been a really good solution where consumers can come on, they can go to their feeds, they can read about what their friends are doing, share photos, but also they're now able to engage. And so a lot of these, influencers now have these communities that they've created that are private just for their groups, but we have some that might share 10, 20, 30 different posts a day. And some of the engagement's unbelievable, where they'll comment saying, I bought that for my friend, or I bought that for my daughter. So it's really an amazing way to reach at scale, but also communicate on a one-to-one basis with your target consumers.
So it's a brave new world for a group of people that have been around for a type of influencer for a long time. Could you talk a little bit about sort of what they specifically bring to the table?
Absolutely. So what's really important, it is that unique authenticity for what they believe in, right? So, we'll never push someone to write about a product that they're not passionate about. So, whether it's kids clothing, if there's a brand that they feel it's durable, it's quality for their children, they'll write about that. They'll share photos, even if their family is wearing those specific items. So it's really important to understand their audiences, but also they are an extension of your brand. So we've had some examples where, a brand will come to us and say, we want your community to talk about this specific product. And they'll allow the influencers to pick a product. And, it really helps because if Adidas said, hey, that's a real comfortable shoe, that's one thing. But if a consumer said, it's a comfortable shoe and here's a picture of my daughter wearing it, it really becomes that authentic recommendation that consumers value and leads to higher conversion rates because it's that built-in credibility throughout that consumer journey.
So why don't we, maybe you could talk us through an example, sort of a simple prototype type of influencer that you work with.
Absolutely. So here is a fictitious example, but this is what many of our influencers do look like. So this is Jenny. So you can see here, this is typically what her Facebook community would look like. In this case, she has over 100,000 users or members that have chosen to opt into her group to view her content and to be able to see her content. Again, in this case, she's posting about dresses, and you can see she's writing about why that dress meant something or why, she recommends that to her audience. And again, what I find is really powerful is that a dress like this, she might have her audience say, I bought that, here's my picture. And again, it's truly that community feel that she's able to create so that it's not only Jenny talking about it, but it's her whole community saying, oh yeah, I want that too, or I got that too. So it becomes a really powerful way for brands, like people like Jenny, to reach their consumers and, give them what they're looking for in terms of recommendations and advice on some top products.
So what is it about this Jenny that makes her pitch so authentic? Why is it different than, say, anybody going out there?
Sure. So I think it's really important that she reaches the vertical. It's that mom buying for her family, right? It is something that's authentic. She doesn't, she'll only write about products that she believes in. So I think it becomes a really trusted source of someone speaking about your brand. So I think where brands, want to keep controls in terms of messaging, someone like Jenny allows that authentic, true voice in the market to speak on their behalf in topics that they feel are important.
Is it the environment, maybe Facebook itself just being sort of more native in the actual stream? Does that also add to the credibility versus a sponsored ad?
It does, yeah, because again, it's where, someone's already going to Facebook, right? So they're looking for information. So it really allows, for example, Facebook, to really be able to engage. And again, some of the interaction we see could be hundreds of comments, given the functionality. So consumers can see the post, but they also get the experience of seeing all these consumers that are talking about it. And at times it could even be, hey, those shoes run small, or hey, those clothing, so it really allows for consumers to give that recommendation in an authentic way.
And the depth, like you're describing, is so specific that only someone who really knows what they're talking about really would be able to answer some of those questions. That makes a lot of sense. And look, it seems like a great way for anybody to promote their brands. So what are the obstacles standing in the way of their success?
Sure. So what influencers are really good at is influencing, right? They're good at talking to their consumers. They're not, oftentimes very technical. So the ability to, need to go into 7 or 8 different networks and figure out what brands they want to promote can become a pretty daunting challenge. So, it's how do you find brands? How do you get the right economics? Oftentimes in our industry, you start at the default rate and you have to grow from there. That's challenging, right? If the economics don't make sense, given the value that someone like Jenny provides. In addition, it's usually not a full-time job. We have a lot that are, full-time moms or full-time, outside of the home, they have other careers. So it's really important that it becomes a time saver when they're using affiliate marketing so that they can really just focus on brands they love, creating the content, and not having to worry about a lot of things that are native to affiliate in terms of a lot of the bells and whistles.
Well, I mean, given all these challenges, how do influencer networks worth their weight solve these problems for would-be influencers? Maybe you could take us through, kind of paint the picture for us a little bit about sort of the world that you live in today.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's obviously, the value proposition that any of these networks provide, right, is it is allowing the scale across, in our case, hundreds and hundreds of brands all in one platform, right? So, Jenny doesn't, like I said, want to go into 8 different networks and search for who has Gap or who has Zulily, vice versa, right? So what they want is to be able to aggregate everything in one platform. I think that's really important of having all your brands. Also, we do have a lot of programs. I mentioned the shoe giveaway, but even a brand like Crocs has used us to really, Crocs for work and, really allowing the influencers to talk about a specific product. So we run those campaigns in conjunction with the brand. In addition, what a network needs to do is create loyalty for their influencers, right? Ensure that they've got their back. They're advocating for, these higher rates when appropriate. They're advocating for, ensuring that we have the right access to offers and details. So I think all that's important, and really making sure that influencers get fair credit for what they're doing. Oftentimes they're not last click closers. So it's really understanding the unique value they provide and ensuring that, as a network, you provide the infrastructure and the tools that they need, most importantly, to do their job, which is, again, creating content and making sure that their consumers have what they need to purchase those products.
Okay, so that's basically the table stakes for networks that are working with community influencers and making sure they have the infrastructure and the program ready to go.
Home, family, wellness category, which is, it's hard to reach, right? Not all of these consumers are, going to all of these deal sites. And often we find through our data, it's a new to file consumer that maybe doesn't know about some deal sites or loyalty, but they, again, they know Jen name and you don't have a support alias that goes unchecked. We have one-to-one service that we offer our clients. We think that's really important so that they know that, if they ever have a question, we'll be there to respond. If they're concerned that a link isn't working, we help to mitigate some of those tech challenges. So it's definitely something that we pride ourselves on and something that, is a core tenet of our business. And you can see here's some examples, right, of a couple different ones that we've seen success with, again, in these same verticals. But again, as you can see, it's that family and wellness and even fashion that really resonates with our community.
Got it. Well, given that most of your influencers are not full-time marketers, freeing them up to do what they do best sounds like a tremendous service. And a big part of doing this for them, Scott, is by removing the number of technical hurdles that you typically would encounter as a marketer or advertiser through the network technology. And this is where BrandCycle and Tune come together to make that magic happen. It's basically, the way I kind of think of it, is how all the dots are connected between the offer itself, the actions of the user, and the attribution to a specific publisher. So let's take a little example. Let's go back to Jenny, the influencer, and her role in the customer journey, just to set the context of how technology and influencer and consumer come together. Imagine you're a user and you're looking through Jenny's feed and you notice a product that you're interested in and that she's talking about, and you click on it. You very likely can be directed directly to a page. Could be a category page. It could be a deep link all the way into the content, into the site itself of the brand. And then if you decide to buy that, then so that transaction with the user is done, but the transaction with the actual influencer who drove that traffic is not done. That's where some of the technology takes over. And that influencer is in fact paid a commission as the user completes its purchase of that commissionable event. So when we think about it, Tune is in many ways the technology, the piping that connects the user's actions, including a purchase back to the influencer through BrandCycle. So you could see here, BrandCycle and Tune are in the middle. And on the left-hand side, if you imagine the BrandCycle network is basically doing all the heavy lifting of getting offers to its influencer publishers, making sure that influencers are onboarded properly, making sure that they're managing their creative and their links to make sure that the offers are actually approved. And then the tracking piece of this is where we come together again. As clicks are sent, they're sent through the Brand Cycle network, again, built upon Tune. And then that communication between the user, the actions, and the network happen through the technology. And in the background, Brand Cycle is using the technology itself for setting all of the relationships up and their commission structure and their policies and even the payment. In some cases, in cases of other influencer networks and a network like Brand Cycle, they may choose to pay through Tune, where you can actually just directly take the commissions and the events and be able to correlate them to the actions and pay them right through the interface. Now, tracking is complicated. And in fact, it feels like, almost like, you think about at home when you turn on the light switch, you sort of expect it to be there. Tracking is sort of like that. But in the world of tracking the modern way, it gets super complicated. And the reason for that is that the user journey is complicated. Users go through their apps, they go through mobile web and desktop. They're traversing and navigating through these different sources once they identify an offer, and they're checking and researching. And there has to be a system that understands the rules of each of those environments and makes sure that that tracking information gets passed through from everywhere, from mobile web, through the app, through the desktop, through online, through calls. So basically, and even on top of that, you can imagine what's going on with Apple and Chrome with cookies being sort of an older way of tracking. You have to be in a position as a network to make sure that people get credit through these different privacy initiatives. So, and even thinking about tracking through an SEO sort of direct linking technology is something that we have to be set up for. I mean, these are the things that really should never be exposed to an influencer.
Absolutely, Brian. I think even, kind of the point about the Apple ITP and some of the Google privacy initiatives, even the California Privacy Act, all of those things that are affecting tracking, back to Jenny, she doesn't, usually get into the weeds and doesn't want to sort of think through that. But what's really important to her is if Susie says, hey, I bought that dress from your link, she wants to make sure that it's tracked in a seamless way. So I think that is a important obligation for both yourselves at Tune and ours at Brand Cycle to make sure that we're advocating and making sure that tracking is as seamless as possible, knowing all the things that you mentioned could become factors.
That's exactly right. And we've known we've done our job if we don't hear people complain. When your influencers are happy and they feel really confident in the tracking that they're getting every ounce of credit they deserve, that's the good sign. Well, look, I mean, if underlying technology is extensible enough, it should meet the varying demands of its publisher base. Meaning, as advertisers seek new audiences, and the influencers may follow again and promote where their users are. So thinking about where you said how the trends have changed, you go to where your audience is. In the case of some influencers, they're using technology such as promo codes or vanity codes as a way to allow that influencer to promote an offer in a clickless manner wherever they are, online, offline, and mobile. So this is one way that influencers have been able to expand their campaigns across platforms. Even things such as podcasts or on YouTube or other places, the clickless tracking method is really picking up steam, and it's a way that ensures whether you are clicking through basically in the desktop side or you're going and advertising in a way where you have a long or a vanity URL, they get credit for exactly what they've produced and what they've referred.
Absolutely. And I think that's going to become more and more important. For example, we've talked about Facebook, and Facebook has been, fairly good to work with influencers in allowing them to, allow linking and technology. But Some others like Instagram haven't been. So, influencers have had to create some workarounds. And I think it's really important that these tools continue to evolve to offer like clickless tracking and solutions so that, again, as these, social platforms evolve, you're not putting all your eggs in the one basket. And it can really still allow influencers to monetize the best they can.
Absolutely. It's really all about just helping them connect their influence with the proper commissions that are coming their way. And when I think about the different types of commissions, a network has to be able to accommodate the advertisers' sort of goals and outcomes, and those are usually expressed in terms of a commissionable event. So again, depending on the type of influencer you are, the technology itself has to accommodate the ability to incentivize things like anything from, call it like registrations or app installs. If you are an influencer talking about personal savings and personal finance, maybe being able to track loan applications and funded accounts. If you're on the retail side, direct to consumer, being able to address any sort of funnel event, maybe it's a purchase, maybe it's a repurchase, new event, new customer, recurring customer, and all that information has to be able to come to you through data and APIs. And it really, soup to nuts, a technology platform has to be able to accommodate it all. And when I think about sort of what that means for a network like a Brand Cycle, it means, number one, ensuring that advertisers can make sure that offers are available to their influencers and that advertisers can set those payout structures on geographies, performance thresholds, and the like, and be able to work that all the way through the network and make sure that those folks get credit for what they deserve. Tracking, we talked about. Outcomes can be tracked through promo codes, pixel tracking. At Tune, we talk about post-back tracking, something we actually invented over a decade ago, which really eliminates the need for pixel tracking altogether. The partners themselves, community influencers, the environment to join Brand Cycle and find brands that they want to promote, that's all done through technology and some of the other technologies that you partner with, Scott, with Brand Cycle. And then being able to have the data that's piped directly into your interface and making sure that data helps influencers make decisions, help you make decisions that are granular, real time. Those are the types of things that you really have to be able to accommodate in running a network platform. And again, we talked about one of the most important pieces, probably least talked about in the world, is payment, making sure that that last mile gets actually delivered to the influencer direct through PayPal, whatever means are necessary. So I'm going to turn back on my computer visual here so you can get a look here. I think at this stage of the game, it's really good to talk a little bit about how we bring this together in the world of best practices. So Scott, we're gonna talk a little bit about sort of the structure that an advertiser would think about when they are going through a program, and then we can talk a little bit about how that translates to the influencer marketing side that you deal with. So when I think about, I've come from the world of advertiser. I spent some time at eBay running a program. And, one of the first things that you need to do when you think about a program is to set the right goals and making sure that you're setting the right commitment goals and stretch goals, setting those objectives, making sure you have the right partners in place to be able to get what you need to get done. And then putting the guardrails around that to make sure that the program itself meets the needs of the brand and that works in alignment with the brand, along with setting correct KPIs for partners. That comes in the form of a payout structure and schedule and the policies we talked about. Tell me a little bit about how that translates to you guys on the network side and how you work with advertisers in some of these areas.
Yeah, it's great. So I think it's really important that you have to think of these influencers differently than the rest of your program, right? I think affiliate, some of the value is, the conversion rate, it's the last click. And, while that's great, I think there is a different way that these influencers do work. So, making sure that you have the right KPIs in place. If it's a lead program, if it's a sale program, just being really clear about what your goals are for the program so that you can share that through the program term that would make sure that as the influencers pick up your program, they're focusing on the right products that you want them to. In addition, program policy, right? If there's a specific, a promotion that goes along with it, being clear that this is the coupon code you can use or not. So really, it's important to be very upfront about what your goals are, so that as you're tracking, if things can be modified, it can make sure that it's a two-way street in that communication.
How do you at Brand Cycle sort of ensure that your publishers are meeting a certain level of quality for your advertisers?
Yeah, so this is a big one for us, right? We know when brands partner with us, they're trusting in us that we're selecting and that we're holding all of our clients to the standard that we believe in. So it's really important. We have a whole community guidelines that we've rolled out that all of our members have agreed to. And as part of that, we make sure that, they're representing the brands the way they want to be represented. They're not just using codes that shouldn't be or user-generated code. So, it's really important because we feel that one bad apple could ruin it for everybody. We're truly a community feel. So, we're very bullish, or we're very specific. If we find someone that violates our terms, we'll give them a warning, but we'll quickly remove them because we don't want to take any chances that, we might put the brand in a light that they wouldn't want to be part of in being part of Brand Cycle.
Sounds great. I mean, I think so. Setting the structure up, making sure the rules are defined ahead of time, making sure that they align with your advertisers, all about goals and outcomes. But when it comes time to actually operationalizing the program, you've got your whole sort of console there to turn all the levers and turn on all the pieces that you need to and operationalize and execute. So in this phase, once you've set your program up correctly, and advertisers thinking about the actual recruitment, the vetting, the onboarding of partners, bringing them into the Brand Cycle network, and making sure in many cases, if you're an advertiser actually working and improving Brand Cycle as a partner, making sure that they're on the list as Scott's team is actually doing that within their network, making sure that payments and payouts are configured correctly and that the publishers have their tax information in, and making sure all that information is stored properly and safely in the network, in the network technology, thinking about the compliance aspect and what you do if somebody doesn't follow the rules, and thinking about how you keep offers fresh for your partners and how you make sure that that information gets through to the network itself. These are all things that an advertiser has to think about using their own technology, like a technology like Tune, and then working with somebody like a Brand Cycle who also uses the technology at Tune. Tell us a little bit about how that works in the Brand Cycle world and some of these elements.
Absolutely. So if you think of our consumer or our typical influencer, again, they're not, they might be getting thousands of emails a day, right? And I think what's really important is, what we do on their behalf is we filter through all of those. We'll, sometimes even daily, we'll send them, here's the top 10 brands, here's the top 10 offers. So we really take away a lot of that noise and really sort of help them to identify who are the brands, especially in this economy, in this market. I think it's been really important that, we're sensitive to, the changing needs, but we're also, still allowing them to continue to, be productive and still monetize with the right brand. So I do think it's really important, this efficiency, right? And making sure that, the combination of Brand Cycle allows these influencers to save them time and make it easier for them to really, again, focus on creating great content for their audiences.
Great. So when all is said and done and the world is moving smoothly and people are transacting, the last piece as an advertiser to think about is how are you doing? How's the program doing? And thinking about how to make good judgments around the actual program, what's working, what's not. And in some cases, breaking that down even further into what types of partners are doing well for you, what types of categories and demographics are doing well for you, the types of offers that work. Is it content, the type of creative that you use with these different types of publishers, and landing pages? So these are basics of marketing that any marketer would want to think about, but thinking about them within the affiliate context, thinking about how fast and how sharp the design is and how easy it is to go from one environment to a next as you're redirecting. And then actually thinking about whether the compensation you're giving to the actual partners is working. Is it motivating? Is it giving them the right sort of message about the types of quality that they're driving? And then lastly, taking all that granular data and taking action, optimization steps, if you need to, changing your incentives and your structures to different commission levels or even exclusive types of offers. Really working on the relationship side, knowing who you need to lean into more about who are your top performers versus new performers or even up and coming performers. And lastly, thinking about just the actual seamless nature of, is there a way to make that app to app, app to mobile web, mobile to desktop, that experience even better. So these are the things we think about as advertisers. How does that work on the flip side from the network perspective?
Yeah, so I think it's really important, and I think data is key, right? And being clear up front about what your KPIs are in your program and sharing those is important. What we have found is those brands that have been the most engaged and the most transparent about, like I said, if there's a specific product, there's a specific initiative coming up, a specific launch, those that have chosen to partner with us closely can really unlock a ton of value in our community. So, it's really important to share and to really think, not only about those promotions, but also this is a different type of audience, right? So I think as it relates to looking at results, it's not just a deal site where someone's, potentially on the checkout and looking for a code. It's a unique consumer that you're bringing into the ecosystem. So I think you need to think accordingly about how you can optimize differently to ensure that they've got the right goals, but it's also realistic and will give them something to work for to, again, they do well, the brand does well, everybody does well when that happens.
Hey, which brings me to perhaps an outdated but important phrase uttered by Jerry Maguire, played by Tom Cruise, something I've always thought was a very helpful phrase and probably something I've been saying for almost 2 decades in the affiliate marketing space. This is really about getting aligned, helping the publisher help the advertiser. And in the influencer space, if we're all aligned and all the partnerships and the technology are set up in a way that we can succeed, then everybody wins. And I think that's no different if you're working with an influencer, perhaps, than you would be with any partner you work with, especially in days like today, like where we have lots and lots of challenges that advertisers are facing. Got to think about all the pieces of the system and make sure that we're all helping each other out. Well, in light of that, I'm gonna put a shameless plug in the mix here before we get to Q&A, and in a way that Tune could potentially help folks on the phone out, folks in the webinar. I just wanted to make sure you are aware that Tune is actually offering what we're calling a pure performance offer, and this is basically a way for you to wade into affiliate marketing if you're thinking about it, and doing it risk-free. So one of the ways to connect with folks and influencers like Scott's group, Brand Cycle, is to try affiliate marketing as an advertiser. And in this case, we're offering 4 months where there's no platform fees or 1,000 conversions, whichever comes first. And you're only going to pay for partner commissions, no credit card, and you get to experience affiliate marketing the way that Tune does affiliate marketing for advertisers. So you need to sign up though by 5/31, which is coming up pretty soon. So my shameless plug. Now back to the show. So let's talk a little bit about some of the questions that have been streaming in here directly to us through the webinar interface. I'm going to just pick a couple of these, Scott, and perhaps let me start here. Somebody wrote in here, as an advertiser, do you have any tips on ensuring the influencers we work with are high quality and aligning with our brand?
Yeah, it's a great one. So if you think about our model, right, we are, when anyone applies to Brand Cycle, we have a manual vetting process. We'll look at their last few weeks of content. We'll look at how they promote brands. It's really important that we have those standards in place so that if we give them the stamp of approval, we know that they're up to the standard that brands expect when working with us. So I think that's a huge tenet of what we do here at Brand Cycle, and that, we're always willing to showcase sort of what the content looks like. But I think it is something that's part of our DNA that, because there's not an auto acceptance and everyone's been reviewed, we can ensure that whatever the brand's qualities and standards, it'll get mapped within our audience.
Any examples of like very common kinds of requests coming from advertisers when they're thinking about working with a network like Brand Cycle?
Yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes they'll want to understand, okay, is there a specific vertical? And I think what's also really important is to understand, our focus is on mom, home, and family, right? So, we're fairly selective on who we choose to partner with. So, it's understanding that when you approach us, right, it's understanding that is who we reach. So, if you don't reach that audience, probably won't make much sense. And if it does, let's make sure that, we're thinking through what is a compelling offer, what is a compelling incentive that will unlock the value that these influencers can provide.
Got it. Thanks. Well, here's an interesting one that came in. Obviously, this is a very unusual time for us with COVID-19, and somebody had written in here, are brands changing their influencer strategies because of the environment we're in? Maybe you could give us a little peek inside what's happening on the network side.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely been an unprecedented time across the board, right? And affiliates no different. So I think when everything sort of first started, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we saw is that some brands, with affiliate, they use it as sort of a budget control mechanism. So, my philosophy in being an affiliate for 15 years is there should never be a budget in affiliate. If you're getting good quality sales, why cap it? So I think that's something that's been really important, is that, I understand there's certain industries like travel that are hit a lot harder. So I definitely understand you have to make decisions that are best, for your brand. What we really encourage, though, is think long-term, right? These partners this will get better. We will get back to some more normalcy. So I think those brands that have sort of looked at it from a long standpoint, tried their best to keep commission rates the way they are, tried to communicate even more, I think we've really seen thrive, even in this economy. In addition, I think when we first, started strategizing, we were having daily meetings at Brand Cycle and really looking at, and we even polled our community, what do you want? What are your readers looking for? So, it became online learning to, leisure wear for the home. And, recently with a lot of the brick and mortars not being able to shop, shoes has really taken off. People still need to buy shoes, right? So we've definitely seen, a decrease in some verticals, but we've also seen, more and more shoppers than ever turn to online because they don't have any choice. So I think it's really important as a brand to think about, obviously you need to meet your goals in the short term, but also, how can affiliate help you? We just had a brand reach out to us yesterday. They're now promoting a designer mask. That's something that we think would be really valuable to the community. So, it's really, trying to unlock more brands like that we know would resonate and obviously help in a time like this.
Yeah, I mean, I read the post from Bob Glazer, really great articulation of sort of the idea of, in particular, like this world that we're living in and how it's impacting some of the behaviors that are going on out there. And it goes back to help me help you, right? I mean, it's really about thinking about each other and supporting each other. In the long run, I totally agree with, is exactly what you have to think about. The other thing, as a former advertiser, I think one of the real keys is to make sure your finance team and your marketing team are in lockstep. You got to get in the same room, understand sort of what are the goals, and in fact, why are the reasons you would not be able to give an affiliate sort of a steady stream of commissions if they're delivering on an ROI goal. Those are super important in a time like this where people are struggling and people are actually working their hardest on behalf of other advertisers. So that's this is one of the times where I think relationships are tested the most. And I actually think that those that treat each other really well will come out as big winners in the end.
Absolutely, Brian. Just on that note, what we've even seen is, there have been some brands that have extended payouts up to 120 days or, sometimes even longer. And, while I understand that's what their finance team needs, what we hope is there's some explanation for, why that becomes challenging, right? We're still seeing some Q4 activity just roll in now. So, I think the ability to, knowing that these consumers are already transacting and these influencers are already waiting for those funds, in this economy, it is important to think about them as small businesses and ones that, rely on that income. So while we understand it's challenging, I think that the partners that, even despite that, can still try to honor that, I think goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Perfect. This one, Brian, looks like it might be more for you, or for more on the tune side, which is, where else can I track an influencer campaign other than Facebook and Instagram?
I mean, I think the real short answer to that question is anywhere. You have to be where your audience is, much like you said earlier in the presentation, being able to evolve and adjust, and instead of broadcasting out, being in their world is really, really key to success for influencers. So I think tracking has to be seamless. And so if you're online or offline, you should still be able to talk to your audience. You should be able to give promo codes if you want to give somebody, even if they wanted to go into a store and use a discount, or if they see a billboard that's got a sign or a podcast, or if they're seeing something on TV or performance radio, you could think about like what you can do as an influencer if you're on a talk show. So there's all sorts of really interesting ways to track. It should not be a limiter. And you should not only think about Facebook and Instagram, but I think the real smart influencers will start to find those new opportunistic ways to reach audiences where they are. And I'm really excited to see where that's going to lead as this community continues to evolve.
Absolutely. I think someone might have heard my last point about budgets. They're asking, on the advertiser, how do I convince my boss to try influencer marketing, even though my budget has been decreased because of COVID-19?
Well, I mean, this is really, again, back to thinking about quality. I'm going to answer this one sort of with my advertiser hat on. When I think about any sort of traffic, I think about the quality of that traffic. And there's a whole portfolio of traffic sources you want to have, just like you would in a bank account or a portfolio investment account. You want all sorts of types of diversification in your program. Influencer in particular, if you really think about the crux of what they do, it's about the most authentic, most relevant kind of content you can get. So if you want to spend very predictably and confidently on high quality customers, I would think that the influencer channel would be almost the first place you'd want to go. Content in general has always been a goldmine for brands that are trying to find high quality traffic. So I think they need to get more information to those that are blocking that decision and talk through the logic about the relative value of the types of users that come through sort of a channel like this versus perhaps purely deal-seeking customers. Again, not bad customers, but if they're looking to maximize the lifetime value of those customers, build long-term relationships, I think the influencer channel, specifically the community influencer channel, is a really, really great source of distribution.
Yeah, I'd agree. And just one item to note is, I was at CJ in 2008 during the financial crisis. And, while, definitely some brands didn't sort of continue to thrive, we did see affiliate really help. I think it really helped to solve with a lot of brands that, consumers still needed to find items and they still wanted to shop. And I feel like affiliate actually became a very attractive way to be able to do that. So, I do think with this, once it starts to get better, I think consumers more than ever are now being trained to shop online. They're realizing it's convenient in some cases, right? And it is ability to connect them in. So, I think we'll also see that where affiliate can actually help to allow these retailers and brands to rebound faster with the incremental consumers that are now being exposed to them through this environment.
I think we lost you for a little bit, but you were talking about incrementality. Of course, in the world of work from home, we've got all sorts of fun little things to twist around here. So I think you were talking about the incrementality of an influencer. Just want to make sure your point was heard here.
Yeah, absolutely. Am I back on? I know that my signal might be.
You're back on. You're good to go.
I have 4 kids in the home Wi-Fi. Sometimes gets a little bit tricky, so I do apologize. But yeah, the point I was making is, what we saw back in the financial crisis of 2008 is that certain brands that, saw, use the affiliate and use the influencers to really help, with as they got out of it and as, consumers were still shopping and looking for things online, it really helped. And, what I hope is that affiliate can do the same thing here, right? Now that consumers are more comfortable shopping online, they're more comfortable, being exposed to these new brands. I do hope that this can also, deliver that ability for the brands to see some positive results, as things start to improve.
Thanks. And it may have been my Wi-Fi. Who knows? I'm sure but now they got double the value out of that statement. Thanks, Scott. I have a question here from the chat room just about what are some of the more popular offers and brands right now for Brand Cycle, if you're willing to share different types.
Yeah, so I think what we've seen is that, like I said, shoes has really taken off. Whether it's Crocs for people that are on the front lines, that's been a big campaign. Again, people still need to buy shoes for the family. So I think definitely the footwear category, also that leisure wear, right? The brands like Adidas, Old Navy, Zulily, right? We've definitely seen, those brands really do well in this current environment. So, with that, I think it's those verticals, and it is beyond that. Now like brands like Instacart or brands like Postmates, and I think what we got from our survey and asking our influencers is they're trying to now shift from maybe talking about this vacation or look at this beautiful dress to things that are a lot more, sensitive and timely for, hey, I just got ABC Mouse for my kids, or, hey, I just signed up for the shopping subscription club to really help me to find a new wardrobe for when we're allowed to leave the houses again, right? So I think it's really shifted, and I think those categories that are still true to our audience, especially those brands that have gone back to their CMOs, or they have gone to trying to keep things, and if anything, some have increased their budgets, knowing that it isn't a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? That with all these consumers that don't have access, brick and mortar alone, those consumers are now shifting. So it's those categories and those brands that have given them open arms that I think have really continued to do well within our community.
Here's one. There's a number of questions. I'm sort of trying to kind of group them together a little bit, but there's a lot of questions around, hey, how big do I need to be to turn my passion into a business, like an influencer business? Can you give the folks some ideas of sort of what's required to get moving on this?
Yeah, and I always get that question. I think we said earlier is, on average, we see between 10,000 and 250,000. However, we've had some influencers that have audience less than 1,000 that are so niche in what they talk about that if they talk about a specific item, maybe it's a pajama, maybe it's a specific shoe, right? They can actually convert and drive more sales than that influencer that had 500,000. So I think size is important, but it really is, how are they talking to their audiences? What type of engagement? So for anyone new, I really recommend, what are you passionate about, right? Because you can't fake it. You really need to figure out, is it, buying things for your family so that as you post 10, 20 times a day, your consumers realize that you're doing it in a way that, oh, I didn't realize you could buy that shoe there, or what that is. So I think it's really important to be true to your audience, and then, take advantage of platforms like Brand Cycle that, allow you to work with these, 400 brands all in one platform so that you don't have to worry about finding all the brands, creating all the right economics. We can do all of that for you. So that, again, you can just focus on building that audience and, making sure that they're giving you what they need.
So you don't really have to be a household name you don't need to, if you're an advertiser, what you're saying here is you really don't need to be a household name. It's really about the quality of the information you present to your followers and making sure that the brands themselves are things that people can relate to, and they can authentically be, let others speak for them, is really what's required to make any advertiser, in particular in the advertiser side. And actually, maybe you have some thoughts on this. So we talked about the influencer side. What do I need to become an influencer? As an advertiser, do you need to have that household name to stir up some passion around influencers?
You don't, but we're very specific. Like, sometimes there's a goal, like we want as many brands as possible, right? But our strategy is a little bit different. We'd rather have fewer brands that are going to do well, right? We always want to make sure if a partner's working with us on the advertiser side, they're set up for success from the get-go. So we actually have a fairly stringent approval policy that we make sure, again, first off, you have to make sense for our verticals, right? Then we look at the economics within that to make sure that, again, if it's a category that's fairly competitive that you're not, we do want to make sure that you're set up for success from the get-go. right? So, as we kind of go through that, in times we've unfortunately had to turn down brands. But on the flip side, we've actually seen some very niche brands that have done really well. So I think it's just understanding, with Brand Cycle or any network, just understand who do they reach, what type of consumers. And it is just like the influencer sells themselves to you, you sell themselves back to the influencer or the network of explaining why would these consumers find value in your offering? What types of metrics can you share that really would get them excited? Because again, we're not looking to onboard hundreds, but we'd rather, find a bunch of gems that we know would resonate. So that, damn, that's that true win-win where the brand does well, the influencer does well, and at the end of the day, everyone's happy.
Thanks, Scott. I think with that, in the age of limited time and resources, we're going to give some folks back their time. I wanted to thank Scott for participating in this webinar. I think we've learned a lot about if you're an advertiser, what do you need to think about to run a program? If you want to join a network like Brand Cycle, what are the expectations and what are some of the things to think about in starting your own influencer business? And overall, I hope that folks got an opportunity to see either as an advertiser or a network how the technology that Tune provides ties it all together. So with that, Scott, it's been a pleasure to host you in this webinar. And I thank you very much. It's been great to reconnect with you on this. And to the folks on the webinar, we say so long. And we will, if we get any additional questions coming in, we'll make sure that we can reach back out to you and give you some answers. Thanks very much, Scott.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate the time.
Take care. Be safe.
You too. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.